feel for them.
Yeah.
Santa Maria, pray for them.
And Zori.
And Zori, yeah, that's the most Chamorro word ever.
Okay, so yeah, you know, the way Chamorro studies translates into the workforce, that's obviously a big concern. But how many students do we have enrolled as Chamorro studies majors and minors now, like after all these events?
Well, I can tell you that on October 24th alone, the day of the launch, we signed up 7 majors and 7 minors, just on that day. And that was pretty impressive for a new program where most people think that it doesn't have, that you would not be able to feed your family with this degree. That was pretty good. And so it's hard to tell, but I'm estimating that we have about 15 majors total, just in our first year. And that's already more than a lot of the majors in this college.
Yeah.
A lot of the programs in this college have very few majors. And so for us to have that many at the very start is a very good sign. And it shows, and it's unfortunate that the university doesn't take it more seriously, but if you respond to the community's needs and if you reflect what they want and reflect their experiences, then they will support you. And the university doesn't live, you know, universities have sort of a colonial and a very exploitative history because they were the domain of the wealthy, the powerful, the elite. And then before, they were the domain of outsiders coming in and dispensing knowledge to the local people. And the thing is that the universities have to get rid of that notion, because you need to have a symbiotic relationship with the community. The more respectful and the more responsive a relationship you have, the stronger the university will be and the stronger the community will be. You know, UOG for a long time sort of operated above the people. And now we're working on sort of bringing it down and integrating them together. And if you do that, UOG will be better off in the long run. You know, Robert Underwood always talks about how, so for example, in the States, if you meet somebody and you say, hey, what school did you go to? They will say, oh, I went to Harvard, or I went to UCLA.
Yeah.
But on Guam, if you say, hey, what school did you go to? GW, FD, Sanchez. When you say what school did you go to, people never think that you could be talking about college. They always assume you must be talking about a high school.
Yeah.
Because high school is closer to their experience, and even if they went to UOG, it was kind of like going to UOG was kind of like going into another world for a lot of people. It wasn't like, you know, it's on Guam, but it was kind of like UOG is supposed to take you away from Guam and teach you the way the world really is and how everything else is more important than whatever is here. And it's good that UOG is moving away from that. Because it'll make it stronger. Because eventually, hopefully, you'll have people that will represent UOG. That will, you know, if you say, what school did you go to? I went to UOG. And that would be a big accomplishment in terms of integrating the community and the university together.
There's a lot of big changes going on just within this year alone, like with Norman Analista and those guys heading the community programs, alumni stuff, and all that.
Oh yeah.
So, and with all these social movements going on, like I think Pocket really kickstarted all of it, but it really like sparked people's interest in you know, Chamorro culture and stuff. But you said that in the past 20 years, that's when consciousness shifted towards Chamorro studies and, you know, all those things. So can you cite any social events that occurred within the past 20 years that maybe helped do that?
Oh, well, some of in terms of opening the university up, or so one of the big things which changed the university is when they mandated Chamorro, or the bicultural and the bilingual classes in DOE schools. Because once they did that, the university basically had to respond and now start to train teachers to fill those spots. And so, you know, so there is a Chamorro Studies major here now, but there was a Chamorro Studies emphasis in education before to sort of fill that need. And that was a very big thing to have, sort of, because education over there, there's still struggles over that in education, between sort of a more colonial way of looking at things and a more decolonized way of looking at things. But that was a big thing which helped change the university. Because, you know, UOG started off as a teacher's college to train local teachers. And so it was so genius for the lawmakers to mandate the teaching of the Chamorro language, because it basically forced, the university had to respond and reflect that need so it could train teachers to fill those spots. And that's why, that's how you that's the best way to do it on islands, is to create your sustainable industries in which you create something which feeds into a local industry and then therefore supports that creation. The best example of that, I was telling somebody the other day, is I don't know, when you went to school, where did you go to school? What high school did you go to?
Actually, Dodia.
Oh, so you probably wouldn't have seen any of those then.
Yeah.
But you've seen the Haleta books.
Yeah, I've seen.
Okay, so they're not mandated in public schools anymore, but they used to be mandated in high schools, and in some middle schools you had to use those for social studies, Guam history, and so on. And that was a genius sort of thing, because those are locally written, the artists are local, the content is all locally made, the Department of Chamorro Affairs publishes them, and then they go into DOE pays for them, and then that leads to the DCA being able to publish more books, more different kinds of things. And so for a couple of years, Department of Chamorro Affairs was the only government agency which was showing a profit, because it was creating materials for a market, a locally created market, and it created this perfect sort of circular effect. And so that's why, in the 90s, there was just an incredible amount of materials published by Department of Chamorro Affairs. But once they took away that mandate, now some UOG professors have their students buy them, some people just buy them on their own, but you lost that.
Yeah.
And so, I don't remember why I was mentioning that. But, anyways, it was related to teaching of bilingual stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, I definitely think that other things such as Nation Chamorro and their protests in the early 90s, it definitely did help to sort of, help to create, this is one of the problems that any sort of colonized people have, is that the impression that the colonizer has of you is always that you're passive and docile and lazy. And then many colonized people will have that impression of themselves, that, we just like to kick back, we're just lazy, we don't really want to deal with any of those real things, we just want to, drink bud and barbecue and stuff. That's what Chamorros do. So they have that idea of themselves, but, the Nation Chamorro movement in the 90s really helped challenge that idea, that a Chamorro just kind of sits in class, like a Chamorro just kind of sits there and listens and is respectful and doesn't challenge anything. And so the way that they sort of reshaped the island consciousness, it definitely helped reshape sort of Guam, the University of Guam as well. Made a lot of things sort of possible that would not have seemed possible before. So you can definitely credit them for a lot of, and that's why, of course, I'm happy that one of the founders of Nation Chamorro, Ed Benavente, is coming to lecture this week. Is because he was elbows deep in that movement, in those protest movements. And then we'll see what happens in the future with sort of Chamorro studies. Me personally, I would like for it to continue to be more community engaged. That's definitely what I would like, and I think its future lies in that way, in that direction. But if that's the case, then it will definitely be involved in other sort of movements and other activities involved in related to Chamorro rights, Chamorro issues,
Yeah.
decolonization.
Okay. Maybe we can talk about what obstacles has this program faced in the past, and what changed recently that allowed this to really get the ball back rolling?
The biggest obstacle that this program, so there's two big obstacles that this program faces, and one of them is relatively minor compared to the other. The minor one is that there is a Chamorro Studies major, but because of the university and their WASC accreditation, and their accreditation from WASC, their accreditation report saying that they have too many programs and need to eliminate programs, when we when we wanted to create a Chamorro Studies program, we were told that it needs to be combined with other programs in order for it to go through. And so this led, this was a problem because a lot of us wanted it to be its own autonomous program. But we were told in that climate it's going to get difficult, it's going to be difficult to pass through. And so we decided, okay, well, we'll accept this combining of programs now. But eventually, after we've established ourselves, we may want to sort of become a standalone program. And so Chamorro Studies is a major in the same way that art, theater, and music are majors. So you get a degree in fine arts, but you can pick a track. Mm-hmm. Now, Chamorro Studies is in Pacific Asia Studies, and it has Chamorro Studies track, East Asia Studies track, and Japanese Studies track. And so, and that it might lead to problem. It might be sort of it is a problem because when you represent the program to the community, people kind of get offended when they find, what, you couldn't just make a Chamorro Studies program? You had to combine it with all these others. And so it is, but that's kind of a minor problem. It can be fixed eventually. The big major problem, though, is that there is no financial support whatsoever for the Chamorro Studies program. So, for example, I am the program coordinator for it, but I'm not in Chamorro. I'm not in the Chamorro Studies program. No one is. It doesn't have a faculty. I am a one-year hire in the modern language department, and all of the other Chamorro Studies faculty are in English, or in history, or somewhere, or they're adjuncts. Mm-hmm. And so that is a very serious problem when a program is trying to grow, is if you don't have a stable faculty who doesn't have to worry about if they're going to have a job or if they're next semester or not, it can get difficult to sort of grow yourself. And that has to do with the climate that the university is right now in terms of finances. Mm-hmm. But they should I really hope that the president and the administration can find a way to put some money to support Chamorro Studies. Yeah. Because it can be like a signature program in the world and in the region, in the same way in which Hawaiian Studies is a centerpiece program at UH, in the UH system. Maori Studies, is big in Aotearoa. And then you have sort of these programs which are very big, which are centerpieces in how you represent your university to the world. Chamorro Studies could be like that, but it can't do it without support. Right. I mean, I think we've done really well. We've done a lot of things with absolutely no money, and Dr. Feon Talan and I, she's the primary person, but I'm more support. We did get a 3-year, $600,000 grant to create a standardized Chamorro curriculum for teaching college-level Chamorro. And so we're doing already like pretty cool things with absolutely no support. Absolutely no support. And so I'm hoping that in the next year or two, the university recognizes that and basically says, we need to have something. We need to have something, we need to put somebody in place so that they can develop this program and turn it into that centerpiece that we want it to be. Because if you just have adjuncts do it, or people who, because when you look at the core people, when you look at the core people for Chamorro Studies now.
How many of you are there? Core people?
Well, there's me, and so I am on year-to-year contracts. So in May, I won't be employed at the University of Guam anymore. But then they may give me another contract, right, and then I'll get one more year. And that's the way it's been for 5 years. And then, so you have Evelyn Flores, who is the chair of the English department and is very busy because she's the chair of the English department. That's one of the most sort of busy, hectic departments or programs UOG has. You have Ann Hattori, who's in charge of the history down here. You have Charlene, who's in charge, Charlene Santos Bamba, who's in charge of the composition department or the composition program in English. And then you have James Viernes, who is an adjunct and has not finished his PhD. And then you have Rosa Palomo, who is already retired and is just an adjunct. And so when you look at this list of faculty, it's kind of like, if you were really serious about developing a program, you could do it with this group of people, but it would be difficult because everybody has a full-time job somewhere else, and so what are they going to give? You know, this is the problem that women and gender studies faced for a long time, was that everyone was kind of in their own programs, and so no one really gave a crap about women and gender studies and didn't really do anything with it. Micronesian studies suffered sort of similar problems because people were over here, over there, and they wouldn't really give it any attention because it was kind of like a secondary thing for them. And if I wasn't here, for example, I think Chamorro studies might go in that same direction. Because in a way, you know, I see this as being sort of my nanny. And so I want to make sure it happens. And part of that is selfish, because I would love to be a professor in Chamorro studies. I would love to sort of be a director of a Chamorro Studies Center or a Chamorro Studies Institute, which is what they have, which is what other places like UH and in New Zealand and even in Okinawa, they have Okinawan studies. But all over the place, they have all these studies departments, and you got to have like a director or somebody there to sort of run things. And I'm hoping that we're moving in that direction. What time is it? Is it? Oh, Lanya.
Okay, so are there any other last words that you would like to express? Any hopes for the future?
Oh, well.
Addressing the community, things like that.
So, yeah, I really think that Chamorro Studies is a wonderful opportunity for the community to come into the university and for the university to get into the community. It can be one of those bridges that really connects in a respectful way, in a way which is respectful and productive. And so, you know, I definitely encourage students to sign up for a Chamorro Studies major. You can double major. You know, I think that Chamorro Studies and something else is a really good double major. But even people in the community. But I think that the people who will benefit a lot from the Chamorro Studies program are those who maybe already have a degree, but want to go back and enrich themselves, get a second degree, just come back and sort of really get immersed into the history, the language, and the culture. And, you know, that's what a university doesn't have to just be sort of, you know, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. It can also have that focus too, being a place where our older people, retired people, working people, they can come back and take something like this on too. I am hoping that in the next year or two we do have more online classes.
Yeah.
Because one of the visions that the president has is that we will be able to engage with Chamorros in the United States. That if we are able to offer core classes online, then they will be able to get what he envisions as being a certificate in Chamorro Studies. So if you take 3 to 4 classes, then you will sort of get a certificate which basically says that you have, you know, you have a preliminary grounding in Chamorro language and Chamorro culture. You know, and those sorts of certificate programs are really common, and they're for people sort of that want to enhance themselves, enrich their education a little bit. And we're really hoping that people in the States would want to take advantage of that as a way of connecting back home, you know, learning, because for Chamorros out there, there's not a lot of resources as they would hope. If you live in certain areas, you can go to fiestas, you can go to Liberation Day parties, you can go to novenas. But in terms of actually really grounding yourself, I mean, there's only 4 universities in the world that teach the Chamorro language. And 3 of them are in the Marianas.
Yeah.
And so if you're in California and you want to take Chamorro language, no, you can't. If you're in California and you want to take a Guam history class, can't. Or a CNMI history class, can't. You know, where are you going to get that background? And so, anyways, that's a big hope. Hopefully we can pull that through.